that the power is normalized. How do we change when we believe in the system? And to start, I want to take you back to my life story a bit. And some of you know it, some others don't. So I just start with 30 years ago, when I arrived in the Netherlands as an asylum seeker from Iran. I have been active in Iranian Revolution of 1979 as a Marxist activist. And because of my activism, at some point I had to leave Iran. So I arrived when I was 26 years old. I arrived in the Netherlands and became part of this asylum seeker machine. My dream was to study. My dream was to become a sociologist or an anthropologist. But to think about studying in this country with the Dutch language, it was something that seemed very impossible to me. How can I learn this language? How can I study in this language? And then I started at this university, followed the Dutch classes. After a year, I started with study anthropology at this university. And it was amazing to be part of an academic atmosphere as an asylum seeker waiting for my residence permit or decision of my asylum procedure. At that time, and when I look back, the academic structure of our universities was so crucial for my inclusion as a refugee. Somebody who was insecure about her presence and her future, feeling some kind of stigmatized images about her in the society. I found safe space in the Netherlands, in the academia. And one of the conditions that made that safe space was that I was part of a group of students of 22 students, very small education class. And we had people who were very interested in different cultures, in my background. The anthropology students were and the teachers were very engaging and interested in where I came from, what my challenges were. But the small group number of students we had in the class was so important for engagement. So the critical thinking of anthropological thoughts that we discussed in the group, but also the number of students and the level of engagement we had, the conversations, the interactions we had in the class and beyond the class were so crucial for my feeling of safety, of being part of academia. Also, I remember, don't expect from me as your teacher students, but I remember that one of the professors of that time, his name was van Binsbergen, he at some point invited us to his place, to go to his place and discuss some books. And not all the students, not all 22 went, but 15 went regularly. We went to his house. He had small children playing around. We had a potluck, so everybody had to bring his own food, of their own food. And we were discussing all these books together. It was so crucial for my formation as an academic now, to have those experiences. And it was so amazing to see that the playfulness within academia, the level of playfulness that we had time to discuss issues with each other, we had time to eat together. We were, as students, traveling also to Ardennes, having all great times together. So there was time, there was space, and there was engagement. Now I am in academia for more than 20 years. And do I see the same level of engagement and playfulness that shaped me as a student, as a refugee student? Do I see that now in the academic environment? My answer, regretfully, is no, I don't see it. Why is that? Because what we experience, what I hear around me, what I feel myself is a lot of pressure. And the pressure takes away pleasure. Pressure takes away playfulness. There are mainly financial incentives in the decisions made. that we need to have classrooms of at least 50 students or more, even 100. We are now, in my sociology class, and you are here, the students, we have something around 40 students. And it's a perfect number to have a great engagement in the class. To have time for your input, to have time for your playfulness. If we would have 100 people in the class, we would not be able to do that in the same way. So the financial incentives that forces us to have more and more students, because then that is the only way to survive, is not very good for education. It's not very good for the atmosphere we need to have in universities. What I also hear, and I see that is the action started actually because of that, is that we get less money for more students. So this means for us, we have to do the same thing for more students. So it means to do more efforts with less money for education. And that is unacceptable, because we have a responsibility as academic community to be there for our students as teachers, to have the students, to engage with them and to give them the best time of their life when they are at our universities. Can we do that? For myself, I have to be a manager, I have to be a teacher, I have to be a researcher with productions in top journals and get a lot of money. I can't complain that much because I have been able to do it in one way or another. It's not an exception. If you are visible, as I am, in the society, maybe your chances are higher. But what I see happening as a manager, that many younger generation academics are struggling to perform with very high level standards in a very high competitive context. When I started, I would not have been started actually if the conditions were like they are now. So I am sometimes asked to mentor our younger academics, and I really don't know what to say to them. I can't advise them the way I started, because they have to perform top level at all parameters. They have to be good teachers, excellent teachers, they have to be excellent researchers, they have to bring a lot of money, and they have to do valorization. And sometimes if they want to grow in this academic ladder also, they have to do management. To have all these balls jugglings in there, while you have not so much support systems around you, and the future is a bit blurry because you don't know where to go. You are part of a lottery. Everybody goes for money. Everybody goes for journal applications, and some people are lucky and others are not. It's not only the content; it's also sometimes the luck. And why? And then I was thinking, why are we accepting this? Why all of us put up with this? And then it brings me again, when I came just back to the Netherlands, but one of the things when I came from Iran, I was growing up in a dictatorship. The power was very visible. You knew, I grew up in a family in which it was so normal to criticize the system, to not believe in the system. Actually, whatever media would say, whatever the government would say, you wouldn't believe it. It was all a lie. So the critical thinking started with me not believing in a system in which the power was very visible. And then I came to the Netherlands, and I heard all these ideas about me as a refugee, me as a woman from Islamic country, being not emancipated, beaten up by the men of my family. I thought, oh my God, people here really believe in the media, and they really believe in the system. And I was quite surprised, how is it possible? The one extreme and the other. And then through my academic journey, I realized, and now sociologists have helped me to contextualize that, is that the nature of power has changed. In democratic societies, when the oppression and coercive power is not that visible, the power works in different way, in a more subtle, invisible way. So the power is not, you cannot identify the people who suppress you. The suppression comes from the acceptance of the system and all the discourses that make the system continue. So when I ask my question, why do we put up with this? Why do we accept the context as it is and do not question it? It's because, as Zygmunt Bauman would say, critique has become toothless in late modern societies, late modern democratic societies. We are complaining all the time about the surface, but never question the structure and the parameters in the structure because they are normalized. They are taken for granted. And this normalized source of power is not easily identifiable, is not easily to point out. And because of that, it's very difficult to resist as well. How can we resist when we are, in many ways, complicit in the reproduction of the discursive power, or the structures that, in a way, makes it impossible for us to be the way we want to be? So how do we go against it? How do we, when we realize, if we accept that the power and the working of power is not in the hand of bad guys or good guys, but more in the normalized structures, the words, the sentences, the images that comes to us every day through the media, through the universities, through the discussions about higher education, through we accept what is going on without realizing what it means for us. How do we question that? We question by rethink our position in relation to the structures, to read more and to understand more what is beyond, what lies beyond the structure, not complaining all the time about work pressure only, but to think, where does it come from and how can we change it? As an individual, how can we change it and discuss it, question it in its fundamentals? That starts there. Starts with this kind of actions. To ask our colleagues, the academics, from all different positions to present their ideas and to engage with those ideas and to think of action. How we all can change the system by seeing our role as individuals in it. Our own position and the way we reproduce certain ideas and certain structures. But also, we shouldn't keep it too individualized. We can also think of groups, the way we engage with our students as a community, the way we engage with ourselves to create more delayed spaces in our academia to think and talk about alternative ways to readdress these issues of work pressure, not by touching its surface, but go deeper and organize and create coalitions that make sense and bring forward alternative thinking and alternative ways to address this issue of financial mindset, financial deficiencies, and to rethink also possibilities within the system to create movements. And I always say, if we think about slobby science and the slobby education, what we see happening in the last couple of years is to punish individuals and to create more policing in the system. Let's think about the system itself and the structures that feed slobby science. Let's do that more than policing each other and blaming the individual only. That we have not done that much. I would think that we, as a community, owe it to ourselves and owe it to our students to be more engaged with a critique on the fundamental level that go beyond the toothless, complaining kind of critique, but to bring about change. And we can think of change in terms of individual, ourselves as students that are here, so happy that you're here, and as colleagues who are also here, and also people in the position of power who are here, our rector, Finot, all our role as individuals in the process, but also as a community. How can be a better community? But taking these fundamental questions and issues at the place that it takes place. And then, the last thing, if we, in spite of all this time, the work pressure, make time for our students and our engagement with students, and have perfect examples of talented students who become PhDs to help you in that process, you will be inspired as a teacher. And the students that are here, they inspire me every week with their presentations and the way they bring this notion of thinking and rethinking of structures through their presentations. And this is something we want to be inspiring for each other and create space for change in terms of thinking new alternative ways of dealing with it. I think I'm done with my talk, but I don't know if there is some more time for questions. Yeah? Is there somebody who wants to ask something? Yeah? No. Two. Thank you. Anybody else? Everything clear what I said? Do you agree with me? Nobody. That's disappointing.
Do you maybe have an idea how you will be challenging this system that you talk about?
By standing here and talking to you, that's one way to do it. So to take action and to show this everywhere, because people ask me, what is this? And I say, education in action or science in action. But also what I think is important, I am so much part of the system because I had this, as most of you know, the VG grant, which is very prestigious. So I have been competing in the same system. But it is so important that people who get these grants also criticize. Because if I criticized it 2 years ago as well, but people can say, oh, you didn't get it, so you complain. But when you get these grants, I mean, you are considered to be the star in some ways. That is the position to take and criticize the system as well. Because what we give away is a lot. And in my position as a department head, I see the struggle, especially of younger generation, assistant professors, that things they have to put up with to be at that level of excelling that is expected from them. And bringing in those struggles and those problems and those challenges is very important. This is done by people who are also in our position and who are considered to be successful. And what I gave also a lecture, there was an MBO event, and I really, for all the young women who are wanting to be professors, and I said that I really find great struggle to mentor the younger generation now. Because what I chose, how did I do my path, was so different than a normal high top journal level kind of publication. It was more about combining my engagement, activism of the past, being the Marxist still, some ways, not really, but some ways. The activism of the past, combine it with my academic ambition. And in that combination, the time that I started, that was still very much possible. But now you see that it becomes more and more difficult to be playful, as I mentioned. So it is the playfulness in creating your own path. It's not that easy anymore. Because if you don't have publication in top journal, then you are out. And every publication in top journal for social sciences at least takes 3 years if you get accepted. So you have to spend so much time, and often people and colleagues, unfortunately, of the journals who review your work are not very nice. So you have to deal with a lot of unfounded sometimes criticism. So, and then you have to find your way to get over it, to be very resilient. And then again, if we do not create an atmosphere in our departments and in our universities that we can share the burden in the difficult times, we cannot excel as individuals, but also not as a community. Sometimes what I see happening, and that is the Matthias effect, it is mentioned already by Merton, sociologists, that when you win prizes, when you see happening very often, you get all the other prizes. Everything comes together. But when you don't get it, also it comes together. So when you get, and I have seen that in myself as well, when you get recognition for something, all the others think, okay, she's worth it. And you get so much money you can spend. Not yet, I still need some money, but but I know from people who get prizes after prizes, and then you don't have enough time to spend it. Well, the others, and that is in my department, I know, people write proposals after proposals, killing themselves, spending so much time to write proposals and don't get the money. What do we do with that? How we support each other to stay motivated and inspiring for our students, to give them enough safety of the space to discuss and become the great leaders of the future. No pressure at all, but also to have enough pressure in our own time, in our own universities, to help each other and inspire each other in difficult times. When we get bad reviews, help each other, not stab in the back. It's so important not to be always competitive. Being competitive is good, but not to always go with that competition. And try to find some delayed spaces, they call delayed interspaces in our environments, to create bonding, to create support system. That we don't have time to do. That is so bad. So in going fast and rushing and competing and getting the top, we lose time. We don't have time to delay, but we need to delay to create, to go beyond the sloppy science and sloppy education and sloppy research, and to really be reflective about what is needed. How do we support each other in difficult times, and how the university supports us, and the Ministry of Education supports us. More support systems, and not only compete with empty hands, and be more losers than winners. Yes.
I have a comment. Actually, this summer I have attended the conference in Japan, and it was about wabi-sabi, the imperfection thing. And there, the very same topic also came. This was also discussed there. And it was my first time in Japan, and the Japanese culture and the way how they do in academia. And there I have learned that they don't need to publish in international journals. And it was kind of shocking for me, because as a PhD student, I also know that in theory I don't have to publish my work, but in practice I have to in order to get my dissertation. And I think there the conditions of the game, the criteria are different. So maybe I think it may be related to the cultural context as well. Because here, I mean, in Western culture, we do have more like competition, more individualism. So sometimes it's difficult even to recognize those structures already there, because we're just playing the game. And the game has the rules, and we're just obeying it, and even do not recognize it because of it's so inherent in our bodies that we don't recognize it. So I think we need to question very deeply, even the very norms, the very practices, not only the rules, regulations, even more the culture or more, intrinsic things, I think. And this is what I have recognized. And as a researcher, maybe I can also say to myself, I'm also studying structures and the influence of structures on identities. And also, it also opened my eyes with this respect, to look also the norms and practices, how we do things, And the last thing, I have a daughter, she's 4, and at school she's grown up with the motto of sharing is caring. So I love this thing, and I hope that she continues with this. These are the things. Yeah.
Wonderful. Sharing is caring. It's very, very good. And about different cultures, I know that you're right that there are different cultures, but still, if you think about Japan and the work pressure there, you can't say that different culture has decreased the work pressure. So we have to really, in order to analyze this normalized power they talked about, the discursive power, is all about the history, about culture, about the way we take things for granted, and it comes from our situatedness and the way we are positioned in certain country, in certain system. But if I think about the way that the norms of the science has been very dominated in recent years, it's really very much defined by the US system of thinking, US dominated kind of ranking, citation. So in that sense, it's beyond the culture of the Netherlands, maybe, but it has very much a kind of individualized notion, which fits very well in the new liberal time. That we as individuals are responsible for our success, responsible for our successes, but also responsible for our failures. So in that sense, sharing is caring is a very nice alternative to that.
Thank you for your words. I deeply agree with them in every point you mentioned. But what is not 100% clear to me is how more money to this university could help. Or in other words, don't you think that simply asking more money could stabilize these norms, this normalized power, and simply make the people that succeed in this system just feel like they are simply more entitled to keep on doing everything the way it just is already.
More money, you are so right. With more money, you would not change the system, but you make it maybe more fair. What is happening is, I'm talking about we have to change the thinking and fundamental of this high pressure in the academia and raise the questions. Is it really, how can we challenge that? How can we really think about the problems we are facing, the high level of expectations we have, and talk about it with younger academics, with older academics like myself. But having less money for doing more is unfair. I mean, I see that as the head of the department, I see that we have some amount of money for research, to stimulate researchers to do more, to experiment, to do some more things. But because every year we get less money for what we do more, all that money goes to that big, amount that we have to pay for teaching. So you see that people have to teach more, and in that sense, we take fun out of it. If I love teaching and I always want to go to teach, but I have the privilege of not teaching in every semester, so that gives me some time to reflect, to read more, to prepare, and I have the privilege of having a very talented PhD next to me to help me to also bring fresh ideas in it. But the people who start as assistant professor have to teach 70% of their time. So they are teaching constantly. No time to reflect, no time to take off and think about other things. So teaching takes the pleasure out of teaching. So you will have less excited and experimental teachers as well. So I think we shouldn't do either or, we have to think about different ways to change the situation. And one of the ways is to get paid fairly for what we do in terms of teaching.
Thank you very much for your very wise observations. When I listen to it, it seems to me that the problem you analyze is actually a political problem. It's more at the political system than what is liberal. There's no non-liberal political party in the West. Every party is neoliberal. The left or the right. I think it's not there also the problem. No one questions the economic system as it exists. This perpetuates, in fact, that rush to the bottom, which we see starting in the 80s.
I partly agree. It has to do with politics, what I'm talking about, but maybe politics with a capital P. The engagements, not the political parties. But what I see happening is that when these kind of shifts in politics has been normalized, and there is no political engagement on the surface in our universities, in our communities, and we are normalized and contributors to reproduction of those processes, there is a problem. So my focus would be, especially if you think of power as normalized in the practices of everyday life, that we need to have more engagement as becoming citizens, more engaged with social change on the ground, and not so much thinking of politics as something different somewhere in the head, but taking our roles as individuals to be more citizens, to be more engaged. So politics, but a different kind of politics. I think, do we have time, or the time is up? Yeah, one more question?
Well, thank you for your microphone. I'm not one of your students, probably you can see my hair, but what I want to know from you, I've been following some teachers in Iran nowadays who wanted to start a union. This is part of a union. The union is supporting this WOinactie, but he's punished for starting a union, and it's very tragic. But he is trying to criticize the system, like you told just earlier. I'm curious about the idea of us sitting here in full freedom. Probably, well, you never have too much freedom, but freedom, I think, brings you some, well, you have to act with it, you have to do something with it, not just individualizing just forever and think, well, leave the system for what it is. But I understand, just well, use your freedom to criticize the system, and the sharing is caring. The lady in front, I support. Thank you.
Yes, I completely agree. Nothing to add to that. Sharing is caring is maybe the good start to that. I think we can finalize our meeting. Thank you very much for